Hello and Happy New Year, and welcome if you are new to my channel, and if you are returning, thank you for clicking on this video. It's great to see you again. Well, hopefully hear from you again. But my name is Carrie Ann, and the typical theme of my channel, or the purpose of my channel in 2025, was I was sharing individual dolls from my doll collection and how I've styled them based on some of my favorite literary characters. So for example, a favorite literary character is Anne of Green Gables, so I would shoot vlog style videos themed around the novel, and then I would feature my doll at the end of the video. In December, I featured my last official vinyl doll from my collection, so I've kind of been in a bit of a limbo, or kind of just redirection. Part of me, you know, now that I've kind of completed that project, I might yeah, I don't quite know, but I did want to make this video because I kind of made the part one of it back in June, July-ish. It was my January to June reading recap. It wasn't a very well viewed video. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but because the basis of my channel is inspired on literary figures and books and stories that I love and that have influenced me and influenced my daily life, it feels kind of important to share what I've been reading, and if there's any new characters that have captured my imagination, or yeah, just what has been on my mind in the reading sphere lately. So I hope you stay tuned, and I'll try to keep it brief, but it is kind of fun to just have chatty videos sometimes. But I apologize for moving. It's honestly taking me so long to even video this because the weather's been so cloudy here lately. The lighting has just been bad, and even today, now that the sun's out, I'm trying to find a good spot with some lighting, but also my phone screen protector needs to be replaced, and it kind of sometimes causes a bit of like light diffusion, so I apologize. I'm trying. But yeah, so my first couple, my summaries, I'll admit, like my second half of 2025, my reading definitely slowed down, and I kind of slacked off a little bit some nights, especially come November, December. My goal at the start of 2025 was to read even just a little bit every night before bed, instead of just always kind of taking up that time on my phone or something like that. And I'm really pleased. Like, I think I really met that goal, and definitely like upped the amount that I read this past year as compared to even the year before, and definitely a couple of years ago. So I'm not like at all upset with myself, but I definitely read less in the later months. But I think it was kind of, you know, it's not about how much you read, it's about how much you enjoy it, the depth that you read when you're reading, and yeah, being able to glean stuff from what you're reading. One sec. Okay. So in the summertime, I read Mistress Pat and Emily Climbs by Ella Montgomery. Mistress Pat is the second 2 of 2 books for the Pat series. There's a Pat of Silverbush, Mistress Pat. This book was really sweet. I spent a lot of time reading it when I went on a trip to Ottawa to visit my sister, which was really fun. I got to like sit by the canal and just read this book. Like I've mentioned in my other video, Ella Montgomery books are very kind of more like epochal slice of life. They're not always necessarily very strongly driven by plot. It's very like character driven, day-to-day life driven, and you're kind of following these characters along through different seasons or years even of their life. So I sometimes find them really nice when you're looking for a more relaxing type read, but it can also be hard to keep yourself going through them because you're not driven specifically by a certain plot or like a certain question or mystery or thing being solved or developed. Though it is, you know, the trajectory in Mistress Pat is Patricia, her developments into her womanhood, like she's kind of like a late teenager becoming an early young adult. Where does her heart and passions truly lie? She's really wrapped up in Silverbush, which is her family home, and she's really finding it tough to move on from there or, you know, kind of spread her wings past her home. And it's a really beautiful kind of love letter to domesticity and to loving your place, your home, your family, but also being able to, you know, grow past that, develop, create your own home, your own space, if that makes sense. So that was a really sweet read, and I really liked the ending. And then I read Emily Climbs, which is book 2 of 3 of the Emily series. There's Emily of New Moon, Emily Climbs, and then I don't quite know the name of the third one because I haven't read that one yet. But again, follows a different heroine, Emily. She lives in this place called New Moon, but in Emily Climbs now I think she's in like her teenage years, kind of 13, 14, and she goes away to a neighboring town, city, because this is all based in Prince Edward Island, and she goes to school. She gets, you know, her aunts approve that she can go to this school that's not near her house. So she's boarding with other girls, not boarding with other girls. She actually is living with a relative. So that causes some tension, some drama. She is trying to develop herself as a writer, develop her writing skills. Her desire is to be a writer. But yeah, they kind of challenge her to give up writing her fantasy stories whilst she is away at school. So for like 3 years, she's not allowed to do any fantastical writing. And yeah, it kind of follows her growth and development through those years and in her writing. And it's really nice. It kind of feels Jo March-esque. Just that kind of like literary writer storyline kind of development, if that makes sense. But it took me a while. I kind of slowly got through this one. It kind of took me all of August. I just would kind of eat away at it a little bit every night. But it was also a nice read. Then kind of to roll into the fall season, I read The Grimm Sisters, which is admittedly like what is that age group called? A youth? Like a youth novel? It's not young adult and it's not child. It's kind of like a youth novel. And I read this because I unpacked a box of books and stuff that I had saved from my childhood home. And I was finally, I got this free bookshelf from somebody. And so I was like, oh, now I finally have some extra room to unpack these books. And I saw this book and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And then when I was scrolling on Apple TV, or maybe I was on YouTube, I got like a trailer for that they were making a show of this Grimm Sisters, an animated show on Apple TV of this Grimm Sisters show. So I thought, oh, this seems kind of fall-esque. I like reading more mystery type stuff in the fall. And then I was also like, well, then I'll be prepared for when the show comes out. It was coming out like early October. So I read that, and it's fun. It's based on these 2 sisters, orphan sisters, who are sent to live with this woman who is claiming to be their grandmother, but they were told that their grandmother died and their parents basically disappeared. They don't know what happened to them. And they end up moving to this magical town. Well, yeah, magical town that houses fairy tale creatures. If you've ever watched Once Upon a Time, it felt very kind of Once Upon a Timey. Love that show. And yeah, they're all kind of stuck in this town. And the two girls are actually Grimm sisters. They are descendants of the brothers Grimm, who were the famous fairy tale writers. So it's just kind of a fun mystery detective story, a light read, and it is like a whole series. There's multiple other books, but I haven't been able to get my hands on them. So, and then the show was kind of quirky, but it was pretty fun. It was pretty accurate to the book, so that was nice as well. Okay. Then I had like a couple favorite reads in this. And my next read was then Rebecca. So once I finished that, it was October-ish, I think, late September. And then I read Rebecca, now by Daphne du Maurier. Now my biggest suggestion is if you've never seen or read Rebecca, go read it first before you watch a film, because I think it was last year or the year before, I never really thought I would read Rebecca, and I saw that it was on Netflix, and I love Lily James as an actress. So I was like, oh, okay, the more modern, the newest kind of adaptation of Rebecca. So I gave it a watch, and it obviously spoiled the plot for when it came to reading the book. But even if you have seen the film, so yeah, I'm trying to say that it would have been a really unique and awesome experience probably to just read the book and have this all unfolding and unraveling for the first time while you're reading it. But I already knew the, let's say, plot twists of the story itself. So when I was reading it, I was much more reading it for like atmosphere and just obviously the literary prowess of Daphne du Maurier, the atmosphere, the language. This is my first time reading a book by her, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very good. Obviously, the story itself is very compelling and interesting. I think it's so fascinating that we never hear the narrators, the wife's like actual first name. She's only ever, Mrs. De Winter, and I think it's a very interesting writing choice. And oh yeah, it was so delicious. And just on those kind of spooky October stormy nights, foggy nights, and you're just reading about this deluxe manor estate on the coast of England, and it's rocky and you hear the waves tossing in the background, and then there's just this whole kind of mystery and suspense that's also welled up in all of that. So highly recommend Rebecca. It definitely has become a top tier novel for me. And then I kind of wanted a nonfiction break after that, it was a more longer and obviously more adult read. So I saw this nonfiction book called The Buy Nothing, Get Everything Plan. And this was really, really cool. I borrowed it from the library. I also borrowed Rebecca from the library. And I apologize that I sound so out of breath. This is like ridiculous. I'm just standing here talking. But the premise of the book is these women were talking about how they created these alternative like economic communities in their hometowns where the premise was buying nothing. So it would be that people are offering up unwanted items that they're no longer using, things that they have. And people could also request items that they are wanting, but without a price tag. So you could say like, oh, I'm in need of size 2T girls clothes. And if somebody had some that they were just wanting to give away, then that exchange could be made possible. And it basically is this really neat idea about like community building and creating different like economic hierarchies almost, that like not everything has to be through the for-profit system. And I really love that as someone who is such a passionate like thrifter, secondhander, like try to make do or finding, you know, already used items. I love to like kind of take out that middleman experience. Like sometimes I find it so frustrating if you're going to a shop like Value Village and someone willingly gave these items away for free, and then you as the person come along and be like, oh, well, I really love this item. I would love to take it home and use it. But then this middleman, because they had to do the work, and Value Village is outrageous for this, puts such a high price tag on it, and then you're kind of still stuck in the money system. Whereas if you could have just been, you know, if those direct interactions could take place, like I have these unwanted items and you could choose, you could just choose out of them. How amazing would it be? I would love to have more, like, I've thought of it as like redistribution centers that should be like ran by cities, because like, why do we give our money to for-profit corporations? Like, I totally support also like the local thrift stores that are charity-based and actually help out our community. But then, for instance, something like Value Village is like a for-profit entity, and I know people have jobs there, and I know that it supports those people's livelihoods. Like, I have kind of mixed feelings about it, but I just think that like, yeah, it should be kind of an integrated part of a city to have places where people can exchange items that they're no longer using. Because there's you reach a point where you just want to get rid of stuff and you don't care if you get a price tag for it. And especially if you are getting things that you're now desiring in return, then yeah, it doesn't matter if you're exchanging, you know, giving away items and you're receiving items. It's called like the gift economy. If you've read Braiding Sweetgrass, which I mentioned in my other reading video, she talks about a gift economy, and this is kind of what that book talks about, and it was really cool. It's kind of like it gives you these really high like aspirations and desires, and then you feel just kind of like trapped and powerless and sometimes unable to do anything. But yeah, there's sometimes like you can look for a buy nothing group on Facebook for your local area, like there is one for my city. So yeah, if people start participating in those, who knows what could happen. Okay, then we're gonna move on to my other absolute favorite read of this year, which was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So I read this November. I don't know. I keep track of the dates, but I don't have it handy right now. And I had no idea that Guillermo del Toro was actually in production of a new Frankenstein when I chose and put this on my list to read. I just thought, this is a classic. I really want to read it in the fall and see what it's all about. And lo and behold, I was just about finished the book and I saw the like last trailer for his release of Frankenstein, and I was like, no way, now I get to finish the book and then I can see what this film adaptation is like. And I'll talk a bit about that in a sec. But this book was amazing. And so I apologize for the quick jump. I somehow accidentally lost a few minutes of footage where I was talking about my thoughts on Frankenstein the novel, and I'll try to keep this brief. I am so mad at myself for, I think, permanently deleting the clip without it transferring to my other device. Okay, so Frankenstein, I think, was a really awesome book, especially for the fact that it still seems like a very relevant story to us even 200 years later. It was written in the early 1800s, I believe. And Mary Shelley was just obviously a very well-read young woman. Her parents were very influential, I think, over her education. I have a college version of the book that I read where it has, you know, what's the word, like introduction, and it has footnotes and stuff. And yeah, it's constantly referencing all these other very intense literary pieces that she is, you know, basically drawing from when creating the story, the modern Prometheus. And yeah, my first kind of thought after finishing the book was I thought about the modern people who are so focused on creating realistic humanoid type AI robots. And I say to myself, have you not read Frankenstein? Because the whole thing with Frankenstein is Victor becomes, you know, with his blinders on, so focused, so zoned into just achieving his goal without, you know, thinking about the ramifications, thinking about the cascading effects of if he were to actually achieve it. He's just in vain, selfish pursuit of, I think I can achieve this thing, I'm going to achieve it. And the aftermath of that is, of course, he is then sent into basically eternal vexation, eternal worry, fear, and distress, and it ends up leading to the destruction of all the things that he loves, which I think has quite a parallel to today with the AI technology and what is already happening with just basic AI technology. But if it were to be fully presented to us in these human mechanical systems, that is just so unnecessary. But yeah, we're facing the fact that AI is destroying things that we love, the things that actually bring life and joy to us as humans, which is mainly the arts, the creative endeavors that humans pursue. AI is eating away at that and is creating just falsehoods, you know, and is saturating the market with garbage. So yeah, we're having this kind of similar experience where these things that people relentlessly pursued didn't really think of the full-scale ramifications, and we're then having to like deal in the aftermath. And I think that it is, yeah, such a timeless tale. And I think that she wrestles with a lot of feelings between creation, like if we're thinking then literally like creation, and the creator, and the development, like what it's like you're getting this an adult body experiencing like infantile development, and so you're kind of getting that experience through the monster, and it makes you really amazed at what children are capable of and what they are going through. And yeah, it just covers so many unique things that I highly recommend reading it. I'm going to jump back to my original footage, and I'm going to talk a bit about the film by Del Toro. Now, I then watched Del Toro's, I'm going to go on a bit of this because I wanted to talk about it for so long, Del Toro's adaptation. And my first opinion is that the monster is too handsome. I think it's kind of hard with Jacob Elordi as your actor to like make him anything but that's my one critique. The film is cinematically like gorgeous. I do appreciate, I watched some behind the scenes and Del Toro's talking about like, I don't want just eye candy, I want eye protein. I want it not only to be beautiful, but I want it to be satisfying, something that sits with you and endures for you for a long time, not just like gives you a rush and then fleets. And like, how beautiful. There's so much bad cinematography these days. But I really liked that it followed the general plot of the novel. Because yeah, once I read the novel and I was like, I have had no media experience where this is actually like correlates the novel and the film depictions. I granted haven't watched Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with Kenneth Branagh. And I have a feeling that that one is probably pretty accurate. It's on my list to watch, and I love anything with Kenneth Branagh. So I'm curious how that film adapts the novel. But yeah, so I was kind of like, whoa, this is very different than what I thought. And then watching Del Toro's was like, oh great, it kept a lot of visuals. It kept the icy landscape in the end, and it kept, you know, the big castle and the village, the hovel, the cottage with the old man and his family. So there's a lot of very similar beats to the novel, but I do think that he made some interesting changes which make it kind of a different story as well from Mary Shelley's, like what I took from it versus what he kind of portrays. And mainly it's because, how do I describe it? It takes away that thing of like the monsters destroying the things that Victor loves. Instead of the monster purposefully killing Elizabeth, who was not his brother's romance, but his romance, on their wedding night, which is like how guttural and horrible when you read it in the book. Like, I was shook. Instead of that happening, Elizabeth is not Victor's lover, and Victor ends up being the one shooting Elizabeth and then causing her to die, and she goes away with the monster and is all like, oh, I just felt understood by you. It's just a very different take, that he has this angst with his father versus like in the novel, he very much like adores his father, you know, has a loving relationship with him. They're obviously very devastated when the mother dies. And Will, you know, the brother, they age up and make him like as a young adult, and who's then in love with Elizabeth, versus in the novel, he is a little boy. I hope I'm not spoiling. Like, I hope I'm not spoiling. Maybe skip over if I'm spoiling. But he's a little boy in the novel, and the monster doesn't knowingly know that it is Victor's brother, but still kills him. I think in that instance, it was kind of like an accident. He's like overpowered and the boy ends up dead. But yeah, like Victor gets all these people that he loves, like Will dies and his best friend, the monster kills his best friend, and then the monster kills his wife. And then in all of this travesty, his father is so distraught and like heartbroken. Then his father gets sick and dies. So like, but none of that happens in this film. It's very like, it's just kind of like Victor versus the monster. And then it's like the turn on his head, like that Victor is the monster in reality for doing this. And then, yeah, I think it was an interesting direction. The way that they kind of have a reconciliation at the end before Victor dies, that isn't given in the novel. The monster comes after he has died, and yeah, I really enjoyed both for what they were. The film is beautiful and captures some of the themes that the original novel presents, but I think the novel just hits home a little bit different and a little bit more. This is 5 minutes. Sorry. This is what I wanted to talk about the most, so I hope you don't mind. I then, early December, read The Voyage of the Dawn Treader by C.S. Lewis. I've slowly been trying to make my way through the Narnia series. I have the books. I kind of just pick a time to read one of them, and then I wait, and then I read another one. And yeah, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, if you don't know, they get swept back to Narnia with Prince Caspian, and he's on this voyage with his cool boat, and they're going to look for the lost lords of Narnia, and they don't quite know what they will discover. They're also kind of in search for like the end of the world for Aslan's country. The end of the book is just beautiful if you're a Christian and you're thinking about the heavenly country, which is, you know, Aslan's country. And yeah, great read. I enjoy the Narnia series and will probably try to read some more this year. And then, admittedly, my last book was called The Liturgical Year. I finished off with something, like I said, I kind of was slacking off in my reading late November, December after I finished Frankenstein. So yeah, I read this book called The Liturgical Year. I was trying to, when Advent starts, so the 4 weeks prior to Christmas in a liturgical based church. That's technically their new year. That's the start of the new church year, is the beginning of Advent. So I was just kind of intrigued to read a bit more into the whole working of the liturgical year, what it means for us as Christians, or can mean for us if we decide to, you know, follow it and bring it not just in the church, but bring it into kind of like our day-to-day lives, our home lives. And yeah, it was an encouraging, kind of nice perspective to read. And that was 2025. I can't believe it. I am going to make this special mention because I have now finished this book, though it was technically in January, but I'm going to throw it out here as a recommendation as a winter read because it was so good. I picked this book up at like a library sale because they discarded it, and I can't believe that they discarded this book. But it's called The Way Past Winter, and oh my gosh, it's so good. It's actually like a plot-driven story. I'd say it's one of those kind of like youth-written novels as well. Like it was probably in the children's section of the library. Yeah, it follows these sisters, well, and they have a brother. They live in their house in the woods, the Eldbjorn forest, the Old Bear Forest, I think is what it kind of translates to. But one day, like, their father disappears, so now it's just the siblings. They're living, surviving on their own. And then one day, these strange men appear at their door asking to like camp out in their yard. And, you know, the one daughter wakes up in the middle of the night to see her brother like talking with somebody from the group in the middle of the night. She gets freaked out. By the time they wake up in the morning, the brother is gone. He's left this ring, which used to belong to their father, that he would wear, and you know, he disappears. The oldest sister thinks that she's just abandoned him, just like their father did, but the middle sister, she's like convinced that he wouldn't have gone, like, you know, that he didn't go willingly, somebody took him. And the little sister also agrees because she saw what was happening in the night. And so the novel kind of follows them trying to find their brother, and it's so good. Go read it.